Brothers, yesterday I reacted to a clip of Tim Pool having a debate with Jay Dyer, who absolutely humiliated and vivisected our boy Tim. He got crushed on the topic of God and Christianity. It's a clip that will live in infamy where basically Jay Dyer just destroyed him. Tim is like, oh, so tell me what you believe in as it relates to God. He's like, okay, well, this is what I believe. And he goes, Tim, it's like, so you believe, you don't believe in God, right? Tim's like, no, I believe in God. Oh, okay. But not the Christian God, right? No, I don't believe in the Christian God. And then, Jay Dyer goes, well, okay, then what is the nature of your God? What are the principles of the God that you believe in? Well, what are the principles of the God you believe? Like, it was the most petulant, pathetic, low IQ, and radioactively toxic garbage I've ever seen. And Tim got smited. He got absolutely ridiculously humbled. Well, seems that the Crucible wanted to jump in on that, and they released a video with Tim Pool and Andrew Wilson having a very similar style debate. And Tim Pool said what I think could be considered possibly one of the dumbest things that I have heard yet said to Andrew Wilson, that Andrew Wilson is an atheist. Yes, Orthodox Christian Andrew Wilson is an atheist according to Tim Pool. Guys, strap yourselves in, because this is going to be one hell of a ride.
Phrases I've ever heard.
How?
That God is what we experience in the universe. I think you're an atheist.
Okay, well, I
think you're an atheist. Guys, we're gonna watch that one more time. Okay, well, one more time.
that makes no sense,
You're making the best case argument for atheism I've ever heard.
How?
That God is what we experience in the universe is what we would describe as God. It is the definition of everything atheists have ever argued to me.
I'm not even making arguments to you right now. All I'm doing is...
So, I want you to understand, we're going to watch more of it. That is literally not what Andrew Wilson was arguing. You have to understand. Tim is a midwit. Tim has the intelligence and the temperament of a Reddit tier atheist. This was a humiliating showing for Tim. And the thing is, here's what Tim does. When Tim is debating somebody that he knows is smarter than him, what he does is he increases the speed at which he's talking, and also he pulls out words that he thinks are big, because he thinks these two things in conjunction make him sound smart. It doesn't. Because at the end of the day, no matter how fast you talk or how slow you talk, your argument has to be consistent. It has to make sense. It has to flow from one thought to the next, to the next, to the next. So, if it doesn't do that, and you're just spouting a bunch of gibberish because you're heated and you're embarrassed and you know that you're getting smited on your own show, I mean, that tells you the temperament and mentality of Tim Pool.
It's expressing to you
God
that...
is not all-powerful.
No, the opposite.
You said God can't create a boulder he cannot lift.
No, because...
Every single priest,
do you know what...
theologian I talked to said the opposite.
Yeah, no, none of them. Their dogma literally would prevent them from defying the nature of God. Not a single theologian on planet Earth who's a priest has ever said to you, Tim, God could create a God more powerful than him. That never happened.
No, they said...
It's not possible.
So my question is for Andrew, and hopefully I can at least partially satiate your desire to argue. So this is kind of going back to when you were here with Tim last time, and you were talking about the existence or not of rights.
Yes.
And so a friend of mine who is also a fan of yours, who showed me some of your videos. So the first one was your conversation with Dave Smith. We've kind of had a prolonged conversation about the existence of rights, him taking more of your perspective. I'm disagreeing.
So to give you a little bit of a play-by-play, This is a Cullen segment of the show. You have this guy, Perceptual Jonathan, who's asking Andrew Wilson a question. The other members of the panel are, just sitting around listening. And Tim, right now he's filing his nails. He's playing with his cuticles. But Andrew Wilson is engaging with this guy who has a different worldview, and it's going to be very interesting because in a few seconds, or rather a few minutes, Tim and Andrew get into a heated back and forth because Tim fundamentally doesn't understand. So we're going to jump ahead, and we're going to watch this interaction between Andrew Wilson, who, by the way, is an Orthodox Christian. He's Eastern Orthodox. And Tim Pool can't even define what God he believes in. He's trying to, you know what he's trying to do? He's trying to do the Jordan Peterson thing. No, guys, I believe in the practical applications of Christianity. I just don't believe in Jesus. I just don't believe in the Christian God. Like trying to pick and choose like it's a buffet. No, it's not a buffet. You either believe or you don't. There are no half measures. Either you accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior and that he died for your sins to give you everlasting life, or you're going to burn in hell for all eternity. There is no middle ground. There is no, oh, well, golly gee shucks. I want this, but I don't want this. Ew, it's icky. It's like women talking about what privileges they should have in society versus their duties. Oh, I don't want those icky duties, but I want all the privileges. That's Tim. That's Tim Pool.
Fundamental mistake. Where does that right come from?
Yeah, so this is where
I have the
there's nothing
obligation, but you don't have any right.
They don't have the right to defend themselves.
Don't even have a right to do that.
Well,
you can defend yourself, or does it become a right? So the thing is like, where does the duty form into the right process? That's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it's that you basically can't have one without the other.
How? Why not?
So I would say, well, I guess I would start with, well, I have then an entitlement to not be, and we could go and look at particulars like how the biblical.
But I'll just say this. It sounds to me like you're not a Christian.
So Tim Pool, who's not a Christian, who's not a theologian, doesn't understand any of this, has no knowledge of this, Reddit-tier atheist, been an atheist forever, leftist, just immediately interjects and says, well, guys, I don't think that Andrew Wilson is a Christian. Wow. Tim, you're a fucking idiot. You're an embarrassment. You're such an egotist. You don't understand any of what he's talking about. The thing is, Tim, you are a midwit. You are barely above average in terms of your ability to articulate things. But when it comes right down to it, you flop and fall apart like days old bread. You crumble. And it's embarrassing. You just told this man he's not a Christian. Why? Based on your own misunderstanding. Anyway, let's watch Tim dig his own grave, metaphorically speaking. Because look at Andrew Wilson's face. He knows Tim fucked up. He's about to go in. Look at that.
The argument you're proposing is that Christianity is subjective and only partial. Therefore, the right cannot exist because God's law, God's word, is not mandate for all.
Right? Are you asking me?
Yeah. That's what I hear from you.
Oh no.
Oh my God. Oh, and then Tim, even worse. He comes and he tries to explain it. Oh no. Oh God. Oh man. Yeah.
Well, the opposite. I'm saying that God is giving you a sequence of duties, not in any way any rights.
When God says, "Thou shalt not,"
that's a duty.
The presumption is that
it is literally a duty. When God says, "Thou shalt not kill," that doesn't mean you have the right not to be killed. It's not what that means. It means you have a duty not to murder people. It's actually, "Thou shalt not murder." It means you, as a Christian, have a duty not to murder people. It doesn't mean that you have some right not to be murdered, because you can be murdered. But you, as a human being, you as an individual, can choose not to kill. Like, oh gosh, like thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. Don't have an affair. It doesn't mean that you now have the right not to be cheated on. Yeah. Oh man, don't covet your neighbor's wife. It means that means that you now have the right not to be cheated on. No, you have a duty as a wife or a husband to not cheat on your partner. That does not mean that you have a duty to do that under the contract that you signed under God, which was marriage. It doesn't mean that you have a right not to be cheated on. This is where Tim fundamentally falls apart. Andrew tries to explain this, but Tim Pool is so egotistical, he's so arrogant, and he's such a midwit that it flies right over his head.
We, under God's law, are protected from being...
Nope.
Wait.
Where's that presumption?
I don't know if
The presumption is that God has ordered you not to...
Yeah, that's right.
Thou shalt-
God has ordered me not to kill you.
Right, so there's...
Why does that suppose
My entitlement?
that
God
you're
has told you
entitled to not
do
get?
it. Because God told you not to do it.
No, God told. Okay, that makes no sense.
How,
Well,
explain
how
it.
does it?
Say
How does it follow? You'd have to
Literally,
hang on,
God says you can't do it.
hang on. You'd have to demonstrate how it follows. That if God says I cannot do a thing, that means you have a right to a thing.
Yes.
Yes. No, Tim. No. 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 Tim. No. Oh my gosh. Guys. Oh man. I'm gonna lose my mind, guys. I'm gonna lose it.
Thou shalt not buy a house, but you have a right to.
You have free will. You can violate God's law all you want if you're not a Christian, which is the argument you're making. People who are not Christians will
No. Oh my gosh.
violate God's law, God's word.
Well,
So then
if
it's
I
not
could
a right.
There, I would even go. I would even go one
The
further
presumption
than
that
Tim.
I don't understand what you're trying to say, that rights are things that are impossible to happen in the real world.
No, I'm saying that a right is a
Entitlement.
absent a duty. And I'm saying
Yes.
that the things that
So if you are a Christian,
hang on,
you can't...
yeah, that's a duty. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree that Christians have duties. What I don't agree with is that Christians have rights. So there's no real right to life. You could die at birth, right? You don't really have a right to do this. And also, God's nature can't be contrary.
You
So,
think babies don't have a right to life?
well, hang on. I'll explain. God's nature can't be contrary. You agree with that, right?
We'll elaborate what you mean by that.
So, God,
Can't contradict himself?
Yeah, he can't make a God more powerful than him.
I disagree with it.
What?
Oh. So Tim Pool thinks that God can make a God more powerful than God. And Andrew Wilson is about to counter with, can God make a burrito so big that he can't eat it? Which is hilarious. But Tim is very clearly out of his depth. And instead of just admitting that he's out of his depth, that he doesn't know what he's talking about, he's not a theologian, he's not Christian, he's not religious, instead of just admitting that and deferring to Andrew, who is a Christian, who is an Eastern Orthodox, who is a practicing Christian, instead he tries to argue with him in this really absurd way, where he tries to define the Christian God while not believing in the Christian God, and he's going to tell him about his own faith. This is the most insufferable shit I've ever seen. This is absolutely obnoxious. And the thing is, Tim, God gave us a list of commandments, and he gave us a list of things to do and not do. But these are duties that we have as a Christian. These are not rights that we're given. You know, I think Tim is getting caught up on God-given rights. Like, we have God-given rights. We don't have God-given rights. We have God-given duties. We have God-given duties. It's not the same thing as rights. And Tim is, well, I'm a libertarian. Like, this libertarian slop garbage is just embarrassing. I have the right given to me by God. No, you don't. God has given you duties to follow. I have the right to bear arms. Do you? Well, because the Constitution says, yeah, Tectone lost his right to bear arms. You know, he lost his right to defend his family in the most effective and efficient way because some retarded whore that's now putting, like, thirst trap pictures on the internet made up a lie about him that he was doing all these egregious things, and the judge just, boom, took away his rights. So that's not a God-given right. But you know what the court can't take away? Is your duty to follow God's decrees. You have a duty to follow God's decrees. You don't have a right to not be murdered.
So you're talking about, good God created a stone so heavy he himself cannot lift it. God can do anything.
That's incoherent.
It's not. Logic only exists within the confines of God's word. God's word is beyond your comprehension.
No, logic is a transcendental category, and since it's a transcendental category, we know it exists, even though it's not physical. But all things bind by it. Part of God's nature has to.
God?
Yes.
Would Jesus be able to lift a 5-ton boulder?
Yeah.
Then
there's no contradiction there.
So certainly Jesus did perform miracles.
But there's no contradiction.
Yeah, Jesus could. Jesus cured the blind. Jesus did something even more incredible than lifting a 5,000-pound boulder. Jesus resurrected people from the dead. Tim, you know the story of Lazarus? The story of Lazarus, where 4 days after Lazarus was dead, Jesus went and he resurrected them. And then he's like, all right, guys, all right, you saw my trick. All right, guys, hey, Jesus here. I resurrected a guy in 4 days. Well, guess what? I'm gonna outdo myself. I'm gonna resurrect myself in 3 days. Yeah. So he not only resurrected Lazarus, he resurrected himself in 3 days. So the idea that could Jesus lift a 5,000-pound boulder? Jesus talked about moving mountains. Like, with the power of faith, yes, he could. Jesus was able to take a paltry amount of fish and bread and feed thousands of people. God, this is an incredibly reductive way of viewing God. Ironically, God can do anything. But wait until you see what Tim actually defines God as. You guys are not prepared for what you're about to hear. And this is why it's so important that Andrew Wilson go on these shows and talk to these people. Because Tim Pool, like, I think Christian ethics and values are good. And then you actually listen, and it's just heresy slop. It's just pure heresy slop. It's a guy that doesn't know anything, but is so arrogant that he's going to lecture an actual Christian and outright call him an atheist. Oh, I don't think you're a Christian. I think you're an atheist. Tim, you're a fucking idiot. There's nothing that you know about the faith that Andrew Wilson wouldn't also know and know better and know more intimately because he lives it. You're out of your depth. You're just too arrogant to admit it.
Predictions with those. Those follow the lines of logic. God's nature still has to be logical because it's part of his nature. His ontology is logic.
So,
you're saying God can make a burrito that's so big he can't eat it?
Of course.
What? That's incoherent.
It's literally not.
It is. That's literally the definition of incoherence. It's totally incoherent.
Literally not. I'm going to explain.
How is it not? Okay, go ahead.
So I can use an example like programming, for instance.
Okay.
I can program a video game in which I have absolute authority over the whole thing. I can change the rules at any moment. Mm-hmm. Within the confines of this game, I can create a rock that my avatar cannot move.
Sure.
I can program it so that my mouse can't move it until I go into the BIOS.
And you both program the video game and not program the video game?
Yes. What do you?
Can I program the video game and not program the video game, guys? Yes, according to Tim Pool, you can. Wow, isn't that amazing? I can program the game and not program the game because pretentious, arrogant retard Tim Pool can't just admit that he doesn't understand. Like, guys, this is the textbook definition of a person that you need to look out for. Because it is not a sign of weakness to say that you don't know a thing. or to defer to somebody else who knows more than you. That's the reality. It is not a weakness to say, I don't know. I'm not a Christian. You know more about this than I do. That's one of the reasons why Joe Rogan is as successful as he is, because he constantly says, yeah, I don't know about this. But Tim is so arrogant. He's so egotistical that he is seeking to try to define God with no relationship with God, doesn't really understand God, honestly doesn't believe in God, because he can't define God. He can't define what parameters. He can't define, what principles do God, like, he can't define any of it. And seeks to lecture Andrew Wilson on, no, this is the correct way to view God. Even though he's not a Christian, he's the type of person that thinks, well, I'm writing this line. I'm so much more superior and intellectual. Tim, you're not. You look embarrassing here. This is humiliating.
What do you mean?
What? How do so you can make a video game that you never made?
What are you trying to say?
Can you make a video game that you never made?
Yes.
What?
What do you mean?
That's direct
I literally can
contradiction.
only make games I've never made. I don't make the same game twice.
No. And you both make a game while at the same time you're not making the game.
But I don't understand.
Can the game exist and at the same time not exist?
There is a reality where, yes, quite literally, it's called the paradox. Paradoxes are things that exist within the confines of our logical.
No, that's a contradiction. A paradox is different than a contradiction. Tim, you cannot both be me and you. You can only be you.
You don't know that.
Well, yeah, I do, because it would violate the law of non-contradiction.
So this is where I feel like you're running into a problem. You think you know God.
No, I only understand that God has to have a nature, an ontological nature.
And
like
you don't.
everything.
And what you think you know of God
tells us his nature.
looking through a keyhole through a 800-bedroom mansion.
It's based on what God tells us his nature is.
Yes, and God can't. You can't comprehend higher dimensions. It's physically impossible. This
is an energy. What you're talking about is what's called an essence energy distinction. I agree with you that I can only participate in the energy of God, but I cannot understand the essence of God. That I.
And here's the thing. This is where Tim falls apart. I mean, he falls apart in innumerable ways. And somebody in chat says Tim Pool is bald. You're absolutely correct. Tim Pool is bald. Here's where Tim falls apart. The Bible and the church are both things that are given to mankind by God to understand God, to build a relationship with God. That's the truth. God has explained to us in innumerable ways how he would like us to have that relationship. God has told us what his nature is. God is good, but God is a God of justice, but he's also a God of good. He's a God of love and a God of mercy, but a God of justice. Here's the thing. Everything that God has done in the Bible, every miracle, everything that he's done, has demonstrated that he is a God of love and caring, but also a God of justice. You look at the Ten Commandments. You look at what God says, like what is disgusting to his eyes and what is not. It gives you an insight. What, like, Tim is trying. Oh, I'm going to try to be like, well, you can't understand anything about God because God is so far out of our understanding. The things that God has shared with us about himself is what we can use to better understand and grasp a relationship with God. We are never going to understand the full scope of God. We are never going to be able to do that. But we can understand that God loved us so much, so profoundly, so deeply, that he chose to humble himself and become human flesh, that he might die on the cross for our sins. That is the God that I worship. I worship a God that loves me and you that deeply and that profoundly. A God of love, a God of justice. Yes, a God of wrath, but a God that doesn't just snap their fingers and start over. This whole thing demonstrates how profoundly inferior and ignorant Tim Pool's thinking is, and how limited these secular atheists actually are. I mean, their lack of understanding is profound. And as we're sitting here, Andrew Wilson is doing his best. Brother, oh my gosh. In your, let me just say, Andrew Wilson, in your position, I would be banging my head against the desk because Tim Pool is not looking to understand. His arrogance and his pride remind me, ironically, of Satan. It reminds me of Satan being so proud, so arrogant. No, I'm going to define what God is. You don't know. Oh gosh. You basically, Tim wants to replace God with himself. No, he's not a Christian. He admits he's not a Christian. He's a nothing. He doesn't believe in God. Whatever thing he believes in is not God. He just wants to pretend to believe in something because he likes the donations from the Christian members of his audience. He's doing the Jordan Peterson. Jordan Peterson was never a Christian. Because Christians, they don't have to tiptoe around. Are you a Christian? Well, what is the definition of Christian? What is? No, if you ask me, are you a Christian? I'd say, I'm a Christian every day of the week and twice on Sunday. If somebody says, is Jesus Christ your Lord and Savior? I say, hallelujah, yes, he is. And thank God for that because I am a sinful, broken person. And thank God that Jesus loves me that much, that he was willing to die in place of me. I mean, it's overwhelming. We have a God like that. But then you sit here and listen to Tim, and it just makes me want to drill my head through my desk. Because this is a person without wisdom. This is a person without understanding. This is a person that doesn't understand God or the relationship they're in. He wants to pick and choose and like he's at a buffet. Like he's going to outsmart God, really.
I don't think you're a Christian.
Okay.
Oh God. This bald retard who is not a Christian, who's never been a Christian, has been an atheist most of his life, doesn't understand scripture, doesn't understand anything, literally just sat there and told an Orthodox Christian, I don't think you're a Christian. I'm going to define your religion for you. Tim, Andrew is going to be polite because he's on your show, but I'm not. You may be, Tim, you may be more retarded on the topic of Christianity than the quartering. Let me repeat that. You may be more fucking retarded and worthless on Christianity than the quartering. That is how abysmal this performance has been. You need to never talk about Christianity again. Not because you can't, but every time you do, you look like a fucking tool. You look like an embarrassing Reddit tier atheist. You are getting dismantled. And we watched the video with Jay Dyer, but you got dismantled then, and now you're getting dismantled again. How is it that you could lose this spectacularly on an issue that really is a slam dunk? I mean, it really is a slam dunk. Like, do you believe in God? Yes, I believe in the Christian God. Jesus Christ is my Lord and Savior. I'm a Christian. Yeah, that's as easy as it is. And then demonstrate that in your works. But you're too arrogant. You don't want to admit that you were wrong. You don't want to work to bettering yourself. You want the benefits of living in a Christian society, but you don't want to actually submit and be a Christian. It's disgraceful. You should be ashamed of yourself.
Okay.
What? There's a simple question.
This is Catholic dogma, Tim. I don't think you're a Christian because you're disagreeing with me on the nature of the...
Can God create a boulder so heavy that he himself cannot lift it?
No.
God exists outside of the confines of this logic in which you think you exist. God is so far beyond you, you cannot comprehend this. To ask if God can lift a rock is asking like, it's a stupid question because we are one trechagillionth of the universe, and you are presupposing God lives in your rules. That is reductivist, earthly, one-dimensional thinking.
Yeah, so you're saying there's universes where there could be contradictions?
I'm saying
could I interject here with a question on the nature of God for Tim? Tim, do you think that God could be, instead of a supreme good, supreme evil?
I don't know that there is such a distinction. God as the creator of all things is not going to be good nor evil.
What?
I'm not Christian.
But I mean, it would. Okay, so
No. I'm
so
not
the thing is like what you're saying,
asking,
what you just said is, I understand the nature of God.
No,
I understand that this being who lives in this different dimension that I could never fathom.
I'm saying God
could neither be evil nor good. That's you making a declaration that you understand the nature of God.
No, it's that I would not describe God as good or evil because God exists outside the confines of human comprehension.
Okay.
It can
exist in contradiction.
Because contradiction exists only within our reality.
No.
You cannot comprehend what exists outside of the
literally, the laws of logic do not actually exist physically in our reality. They're transcendental. They're transcendental categories. They govern our reality.
I don't
they don't
think you're
exist.
Christian.
Okay, what? Well, this is all.
You're saying
this is all.
Okay, I don't think you're a Christian.
Tim Pool is a Temu Joe Rogan. Just because he has a few hundred guests on his show, he thinks he can claim Andrew Wilson doesn't know Christ.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely true, and thank you for the donation. But no, that is unbelievably ridiculous. You have somebody that's like, I'm an Orthodox Christian. Tim Pool has said multiple times, you're not a Christian. I don't think you're a Christian. You're not a Christian. And he's also said things like, you're an atheist. Tim, you have no understanding of Christianity. You have no understanding of ecclesiastical authority. You have no understanding of the teachings of Jesus Christ. You are as ignorant about this as anyone. You know, you have lived your life away from God. You have lived your life in complete abandonment of God, and thinking that that makes you smarter and superior. It does not. And now that Andrew is explaining this to you, you have fundamentally failed just the most basic test of knowledge, which is, do you have the ability when you don't know to admit you don't know and ask for more information to learn? You know, knowledge, you know, you can receive knowledge through words, you can receive it through, you know, a book or somebody talking, you know, stories passed from person to person, books. But Tim just makes it up as he goes. It's embarrassing. I've said it's embarrassing multiple times because I'm just, honestly, it's exasperating to watch this guy continuing to shit the bed on something that, like, you're calling him an atheist. You're saying he's not a Christian because you fundamentally do not understand the nature of the God that we Christians believe, but you think that you have a better understanding than Christians, to the point where you can define what a Christian is.
All Christian
has
dogma.
to follow these rules, period.
No, I'm saying that God has a nature like Tim has a nature. Like, for instance, okay, your nature as Tim, the things that make up you. You have a heart and you have lungs and you have things like this, and your heart and your lungs and things like this do work inside of your body that assist your body in moving and functioning and this and that. They're part of what you are. To take all of those things out would change who you are. Okay? This is the same thing with God. We're just saying that there's a part of God's nature which he has shared with us as part of his nature, as the Logos. The Logos, part of it is logic.
Only part.
Yeah, but that would mean that part of God's nature is to not violate logic.
Did God create this universe, or is this universe a function of God?
God created the universe.
So God could change the rules?
Well, no, that would be illogical.
God could not change the rules of the universe.
No, it would go contrary to... So it's like, what you're asking me is this. What would it be like if fire wasn't hot? Well, now we've changed the fundamental reality of what fire is.
So I'll simplify it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I believe our reality, first of all, what we think we know in science, they're higher dimensions we can't perceive. This implies, as most scientific discoveries in the last 130 years, if we choose to believe them, for instance, the electromagnetic spectrum, humans, or air is my favorite example. Humans did not know that air existed because they couldn't perceive it until there was this guy who was showering who realized that there is matter in and all around us. There have been numerous instances where humans realize that things we can't perceive exists. And that is indicative of humans don't know nearly enough about the universe, and that
It really doesn't matter how much you know. God has shared with us. Like, here's the thing. This demonstrates that Tim Pool is the atheist. Oh, we can't know God. We can't know anything about God. There's nothing that we can know about God. God is too vast and too big. He doesn't believe the revelations that God has shared with man. That, really, when it comes down to it, Tim Pool does not believe the revelations that God has shared with man. Andrew Wilson and myself do. We believe in the revelations that, not the book Revelation, but we believe in the revelations that God has delivered unto mankind about his nature, about, the 10 Commandments. What does that say about God? We have a just God. We have a loving God. We have a God of wrath, but we have a God of mercy. So this entire idea, this notion that he's putting forward is absolutely insane. This is ludicrous. And you know what? I'll just say it. It's offensive. That Tim Pool, of all people, this person that doesn't believe in God, this person that believes in Moloch, he does not believe in God. He does not believe in the Christian God. He thinks he's too smart for that. He believes in Moloch. But he's going to sit there and condescend to an actual Christian who believes in God and is too arrogant to listen to what this guy is saying and to try to explain it to them. Andrew Wilson has amazing patience.
that we do know. The discovery of the charged electromagnetic spectrum revolutionized human thought because we didn't realize that what we touch, smell, see, and hear as reality is less than a millionth or a billionth of what reality actually is.
Or a trillionth. Or a trillionth. Who knows? Yeah.
And not understanding dark matter, we are a speck in a massive universe on the ass of a mosquito relative to what God is or could be. Humans saying, I know the nature of God is arrogant.
This is where Tim fundamentally fails. Hey, Tim, do you think we are made in the image of God? Oh, yeah, we are made in the image of God. Then we're not just some flea on the ass of the universe, are we? If God made us in his image, if we are made in the image of God, doesn't mean that we are gods. It means that we are made in the image of God. That he molded us after him. And we were to be perfect in Eden. But then we brought sin into ourselves. And because God is so perfect, because God is so holy, God revealed himself to us. We walked with God in the Garden of Eden, and then we embraced sin. First Eve, and then Adam was seduced. And then God made us leave Eden. That was an act of justice, but it was an act of love as well. But this whole thing, God has revealed himself in innumerable ways through the Bible, through the teachings of the church. But Tim ignores all of that because we're just insignificant. No, we're not insignificant. God has made us in his image, which means we're not insignificant. And God loved us so much, and I will repeat this ad nauseum as many times as it takes. God loved us so much that he sent his son. He humbled a part of himself to take human shape and be brutalized in a way that most of you people and me can't even begin to imagine, and was brutalized for us because he loved us that much. If that doesn't tell you about God and the nature of God, I don't know what the fuck to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. If you don't understand the nature of God and how good God is, and what Jesus Christ did after that, there's nothing for you. You are devoid. You are devoid of anything that's even worth a damn. I don't even know what to say to you. Tim Pool doesn't believe that we are made in the image of God. Because if he did, he wouldn't say all this nonsense. We're just a mosquito on the ass of, we're insignificant, we're so small, No, there's a lot we don't understand. There's a lot we don't understand. But we're not insignificant. of all the different animals, of all the different creations, God has given us more chances than most.
Again, that defies the idea of what we know we are limited in thinking. That is, the average person thinks infinity is a number.
Yeah, but that
Go to the average person
that
and
makes
say,
no
what is it?
sense because all the things that you're saying right now in attributes are trying to define the nature of God, even though you don't think you are. If you're saying, so for instance, if you
want
say,
to put God in a box, I'm saying God
no,
is just
it's the opposite. So if you say God is so complex you can't understand it, you have actually given me criteria for the nature of God. If you say God is
That's the
timeless,
lack of knowledge.
Yeah, if you say God is timeless, you've given me criteria for the nature of God. If you say God exists in the 19th dimension, you have now expressed the nature of God. So what we're doing is the same exact thing. I'm expressing to you the biblical nature of God. What God expresses to us
You're
is
making
part
an
of his
atheist
nature.
argument to me.
It's not atheist.
So
It's the opposite. It's dogma.
atheists are the ones who argue to me that the universe is mathematical, logical, cold, and it is what it is. It is functions as such.
No, they're physicalists.
And
They would argue the opposite.
Einsteinian God, which is an atheist view, is the view that that God is a God of science and that exists as some form of the universe. And then my view of God is that God exists beyond, and that our concepts of physics are just components of what God has created, and God is likely beyond our own perception and comprehension.
But you've said a bunch of things here have entailments. God creates. So we know that.
Yeah, God creates. And if God creates, Tim wants to go with this definition of God as though God is just some like random spirit or like something that's just nebulous. Well, we can't really know or understand God, and God doesn't really, like, he's been arguing that God doesn't really even have a nature. Like, the way that he has been explaining this is just, it's a pedestrian understanding from somebody that's a midwit who's too arrogant to admit when he's wrong, too arrogant to admit he doesn't understand. It's unbearable, it's insufferable. And Tim, this doesn't make you look good, by the way. It doesn't make you look smart. In fact, if anything, this highlights your own deficiencies, and that's why it's better to be a humble man. A man that says, you know what, I don't know this, I'm not a Christian, but I think this, and this. You're going at this, 1,000-mile-an-hour hostile tone when you've done absolutely nothing to warrant it. You've done nothing to warrant the confidence from which you're speaking.
For sure, right?
And in science, nothing
So
can be created.
so if God creates and God was the first thing, then that means God was uncreated. Yeah, so if God was uncreated and God created, now we know something about the nature of God.
Certainly.
Yeah, so this is my whole point. And so we could say the same thing, right? Same thing here.
I think you're an atheist.
Okay, well, that makes
you're
no sense.
making
but
the best. You're making the best case argument for atheism I've ever heard.
How?
That God is what we experience in the universe is what we would describe as God. It is the definition of everything atheists have ever argued to me.
I'm not even making arguments to you right now. All I'm doing is expressing to you
God
that
is not all powerful.
No, the opposite.
You said God can't create a boulder he cannot lift.
No, because
every single priest
do you know what
and theologian I've talked to has said the opposite.
No, none of them. Their dogma literally would prevent them from defining the nature of God. Not a single theologian on planet Earth who's a priest has ever said to you, Tim, God could create a God more powerful than him. That never happened.
No, they said
it's not possible.
To claim to understand the power of God is arrogance to assert that you know what God
I'm not saying what the power of God is. I don't know exactly what the limits of all powerful are.
No, you're saying this reality is a part of God and is what it is, and it's uncontradictory and unchanging.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying that the laws of logic, right? The law of identity, the law of non-contradiction, the law of excluded middle are part of the nature of God. We know this because this is how God created everything and how God expressed to us, he creates. So if that is the case, we can understand that that's part of God's nature. He will not defy his nature because it's his nature. Will not defy.
The nature of God as you described it is the universe.
No, it's not the universe. The universe had a creator.
Yes, and
that creator had to be uncreated.
And the universe is a part of God.
No, that's a Gnostic belief.
That's what you just said.
No, I didn't say that at all.
You said
it's a Gnostic belief to believe that everything
logos
is
of the
parts
universe,
of
the
God.
logic is a part of God.
No. Logic is part of God's nature. You're saying that because the universe is also governed by logical rules, that means that it's part of God. That doesn't even follow.
You said that.
No, the opposite. I'm saying the opposite of that.
So God is illogical.
No, that doesn't even make sense either. What you're saying, all these things you say, they don't follow from one another. So you have to back up to the beginning.
Yeah, so you said the logos, God, the logic, God is non-contradictory.
Yeah.
What God cannot create a boulder that he himself cannot lift.
Yeah, no, because it's against his nature.
What does that mean?
It means that you can't do things which defy your nature because otherwise you wouldn't be you.
Explain his nature.
I just did. Part of his nature is the logos and the law of logic. That's part of his nature.
That cannot be changed.
Oh, what are you saying? God is Legos? Oh my gosh, you sound like an atheist right now. Andrew Wilson, are you really out here saying that God is Legos? I don't even know what to say to you. This is ridiculous. You sound like an atheist. God is not Legos, okay? And if God was Legos, he would be like this one Lego set that I had when I was a kid that was like the pirate ships. Oh my god. Like this should be classified as a form of torture. For Christians out there. This should be classified as a form of torture. Guys, I'm losing my mind. I'm literally losing my mind here. I'm going crazy. You know, do you mean figuratively? No, I'm like literally losing my mind. This is bonkers. I'm watching a Reddit atheist try to take the position that they're more Christian than the Christian who's explaining God, and like what? Oh man.
Yeah, I suppose God could change his nature, but why? You can't change your nature. You wouldn't change your nature.
God can't change his nature.
You wouldn't change your nature. That's the right way to phrase it. You wouldn't change your nature.
Or can he not?
Could he?
Yes.
I don't know, but I don't think it matters because your nature is what matters.
So you agree with me?
No, I don't agree with you. What you're saying is antithetical to actual dogma.
No, the beginning of the conversation was me saying that God could change the rules as he's created them, and you said he could not.
No, because the entailment of could is a violation of nature. So if it's a violation of nature and you wouldn't, you might as well say couldn't.
That's not an argument to what I just said.
It is an argument. If I can't make Tim not be Tim because Tim has a nature. Could Tim, if I gave Tim a different nature, do a different thing than his nature? Yeah, sure.
So
what does that have to do with anything?
You think God is limited in his capability?
Well, you would have to tell me how that's limited.
God cannot affect the rules of his universe in a way that would defy your view of
Wouldn't.
logic.
And if he wouldn't, then he couldn't because he wouldn't.
That is not an argument.
Well, not only is it an argument, but Tim...
You are literally saying nothing.
Tim, you couldn't fly, right? Whether or not you would fly, okay, or could fly, if you wouldn't fly, you couldn't fly, right?
You're not saying anything.
Bro, what am I not saying?
Can God do thing
that are outside the violation of his nature? He won't do them, no.
What is his nature?
Part of his nature would be logic.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So what you're saying is there is a logical structure to God that he cannot change.
No, could change. When you say potentiality for could, right? It's irrelevant to the view of will not.
He can do it. He doesn't want to do it.
Possible. I don't know because I don't understand the limitation of all powerful.
Which is my first point.
Yeah, but it just doesn't matter.
To assert that God could not do a thing because you can't understand it.
Yeah, because wouldn't here is what we're focusing on.
So how do you know that God wouldn't do a thing?
Because he told us.
What did he say?
And here, guys, we're about to get into the piece de resistance. Tim is lost. And I think Tim knows he's lost. So Tim is about to, guys, I'm just going to show you. You have to prepare yourself for this.
Inside of the Bible, he's very descriptive.
Specifically.
About his nature and how he operates.
Tell me what he said.
We'd have to pull up the Bible so we could go over it.
But which part of the Bible?
Well, we would have to start with Genesis and then go through the entire ontological nature expressed through the Trinity.
So you don't know.
Yeah.
So you don't know. Hey, what is God's nature? Well, he told us. Where did he tell us? In the Bible. Where in the Bible? Well, we'd have to start with Genesis and then work our way there to basically understand the nature of God. And because he tells us in the Bible. So you don't know. Oh. Guys, Tim Pool's a retard. Alright. I don't care how many people... I don't care. Oh, I don't care. I don't care if it offends him or Tim Pool fans. He's a retard. This guy is genuinely too stupid to be real. I am all for Tim having a different contrasting view. He's not a Christian. He says, I'm not a Christian. Fine. But he is trying to define the Christian God. He's trying to define Christianity. And when asked, what is the nature of God? Well, God tells us about his nature in the Bible. and through the things that God has done. But Tim, when confronted with that, says, oh, so you don't know. So you don't know. How brain broken must you be? How egotistical, how fucking stupid must you be that you were confronted? Okay, what is the nature of God? Well, we can start at Genesis. We can start with what God did, with what God said. We can go back to the good book, and we can start at the very beginning, which maybe Tim needs to do. Go back to Genesis, to Act 1, Chapter 1, Page 1, and start reading about God and what God's nature is. The nature of God, what he does, what he chooses to do, what makes God disgusted, what pleases God. Like, this is a fundamental lack of intelligence that is beyond just being stupid. This is retarded. This is bona fide retardation.
Yeah, I do know. So, like, God is the Alpha and the Omega. He's the beginning and the end. We know that, right?
Yep.
Okay, so this would infer timelessness?
I suppose, right?
Yeah, if you're both the beginning and the end?
I don't know though.
If you're both those things at the same time, then time can't apply to you, right?
Not necessarily.
How could time apply to you if you're the beginning of it and the end of it?
I am the Alpha and the Omega. Well, yeah, time could apply to God. Oh gosh. So God says, "I am the Alpha and the Omega." Like, we. All right, guys. I'm gonna try. Let's just watch this. If not, I'm gonna lose my mind here. Because it's not that Tim is disagreeing. I want to make that abundantly clear. It's not that Tim is disagreeing. Tim is free to disagree. If Tim has a different perspective or point of view, I think that's perfectly valid. But it's the way that Tim is arguing, and it's what he's arguing. His arguments are unhinged. They're irrational. They're erratic. The statement that he's making, oh, so you don't know. And then Andrew Wilson perfectly explains it in a way that Tim should be able to understand. And then Tim, either intentionally or not, just swats it away and then goes back to, oh, so you don't know, you don't understand. Just arrogance. That's what it is. He's just too prideful.
If it has a beginning and it has an end, it has time.
No, not if you're the beginning and the end at the same time.
Is that what it says?
Yeah. If you are the beginning and the end.
My point is, I do not believe that it is possible for a human to understand the true nature of God.
Neither do we.
And that the assertion that God could not do a thing implies knowledge of God beyond the comprehension.
Would not do a thing.
But that makes no sense.
Yeah, it makes total sense. It's a basic ontological argument. The idea that you will not go beyond the confines of your nature, whether you could or not, has no bearing on anything.
Right. So if God can't do a thing, he's not all powerful.
Not can't. You keep on using the word can't.
God
would.
If I could interject here with an example, and this is why I asked the question about God being the ultimate good or ultimate evil. One example that I would give is God cannot be the ultimate evil. Kind of for what Andrew would say is this is a logical contradiction, because
Correct.
if God was the ultimate evil, then that would mean he is ultimately he's the maximal being in all sorts of negative attributes. One of them being selfishness, another one being anger. Selfishness to the point of wanting to be the only being in existence, but anger to the point of wanting other beings to exist to torment them arbitrarily.
Why does anger exist?
Why does anger exist?
Yes.
It's just a non sequitur. It has nothing to do with his argument.
He just said
like it's an attribute.
Right. He's explaining that God can't be angry. So I'm asking, what is anger? Why does it exist?
No.
He didn't say that.
That's not what I said. What I said is God cannot be the ultimate evil. Because to be the ultimate evil,
you would have to be the anger,
you would have to be the maximal being in certain negative attributes that are going to conflict with each other.
Like what?
So imagine so like you're a comic book guy. So imagine that you had the ultimate Red Lantern meshed with the ultimate Orange Lantern. Those two character traits conflict with each other.
This is a bad example because you know about the White Lantern Corps?
Yeah, I'm not saying that
Bad
comic
example.
books are coherent logically. I'm saying you have two character traits that as the maximal being in both of these attributes cannot simultaneously exist.
It's a bad example because the White Lantern Corps is the merger of all the attributes into one. They all simultaneously coexist.
Guys, our Discord preacher, he wrote down his name is like Moaki. 3:6. His name, I don't know his name, Malachi. 3:6. For I am
Malachi?
Malachi, thank you. For I am the Lord, I don't read the Bible. For I am the Lord, I do not change. Therefore, you are not consumed. Zero sons of Jacob.
Do not change. That's part of his nature.
And so the question
How's that do
is,
with the right to life that we started out with?
do we know 100?
That is a
do
great
we
question,
know
Ryan.
God so absolutely that we can perceive him in full?
No,
No.
not it.
No, but we can know particular traits. So,
Yes,
for example,
correct.
Jesus in John 14 says
I
that
agree
he
with
is the
that.
way, the truth, and the life. So
Agreed.
this is saying that Jesus as God is the ultimate being in a positive attribute, that being truth.
If we can't conceive of God in his entirety, then we can't know everything other than what knowledge was bestowed upon us.
Yeah, but that's a knowledge claim, which presupposes God to begin with, because it's a knowledge claim.
God told us what he is, and through the Bible.
That's part of revelation. Yeah.
And that's a Christian view. I'm not a Christian.
But how's that do with right?
I'm not a Christian, but let me tell you about Christians. Let me tell you who is and is not a Christian. Tim, I'll just say, I think you have a lot of work to do, to be honest. And I can see why your channel is declining as much as it is. By the way, while the quartering is desperately trying to be Tim Pool, Tim Pool is having like a schizomanic episode every year because his viewership keeps declining. I would just say that the reason why your show is declining, Tim, is because you're too arrogant. You have been surpassed by other people who do what you do better than you do. Now, I'm not saying that Tim is the worst, okay? There are people definitely worse than Tim. But I think he has the same problem that the quartering has. That Tim Pool was popular during a time where there really wasn't much competition. You had like the Daily Wire, the quartering, Tim Pool. And now that there's a lot more competition, now that there's a lot more voices, I think that these shows, they're losing relevancy. Because people want the truth, and they don't want to be scolded by people that are more interested in their ego and their, the perception that they put out there, rather than somebody that's actually going to learn. That's why Joe Rogan is still as popular as he is. Joe Rogan is huge. He's bigger than he's ever been. Why? Because Joe Rogan doesn't act the way Tim Pool does. He doesn't act the way Tim Pool does. He asks questions. He presses people sometimes. But Joe Rogan would never look at Andrew Wilson and say, "You're not a Christian. You're an atheist. You're not a Christian." Because he would take what Andrew said at face value. Like, "Oh, you're a Christian? Okay." And I don't know, like, this entire conversation, I think it needs to be studied. That's why I wanted to do this. That's why I'm willing to go as long on this video as I am. We only have a couple minutes left, but I'm willing to go longer on this video because it's so important. In fact, there's nothing that I cover on my channel that's more important than this. To understand God and to build a relationship, Tim is doing irreparable damage, and thank goodness that Andrew Wilson is there to clean up his mess.
Right.
But
We started off
wait
with
a second.
life.
Whether you're a Christian or not,
I don't get it.
it would still have to be your view that God reveals himself to you somehow. That would be some form of revelation.
I believe that we have the capability to observe that God exists through math, science, and observation.
Yeah,
of
but
the
why are
universe.
those attributes of God?
Which ones?
Are those attributes
Well,
of
I mean,
God?
I
Math,
would
science.
say the mathematics part is just the logic.
I would say, simply put, outside of doctrine, you can look at the universe and then calculate based on the rules that there is a creator.
Yeah, it's just the watchmaker argument. So you just say, well, if you were a person who had no understanding of technology, but you found a watch on a beach and you picked it up,
That's literally
you would infer creation just by the way that
That's
the
not
watch
the argument.
operates. It's the same argument.
It's literally not.
Yeah, or you can say that mathematically, if you changed even one little teeny tiny thing, the
Not the
entire
argument.
universe would be thrown into disarray. What's the argument?
The argument is that there is negative entropy, and there is entropy, and that entropy only exists in greater elements of entropy. And what we end up finding throughout the universe, again, assuming you trust modern science, is that energy coalesces and disperses. I would say at a rate similar to the golden ratio. So it's a gradual.
And if you threw
decay.
that off, it would throw everything into disarray.
Not what I'm talking about. So when you take a look at the basis components of the universe, in some degree they coalesce. So we can take a look at quarks, atoms, denser hydrogen becoming helium, et cetera, et cetera. You can see that So long as there is more entropy outputted from a system, entropy is possible. This scales up exponentially and mathematically, which is what humans have traced so far, again, if you believe modern science, because there's a lot we don't know. And you find that everything skews towards the creation of higher...
So here's what Tim is doing. Did you guys notice that? I'm sure you did. Tim keeps talking about, I don't know if you believe in modern science. I don't know if you believe in modern science. So Tim has lost the debate. I think we can all pretty much say he lost the debate. What he is doing now is he's attempting to undermine Andrew Wilson. He said this twice now. I don't know if you believe modern science. What he's trying to do is he's trying to discredit Andrew by saying, oh, this guy's a kook. This guy doesn't believe in modern science. He said that twice now. He said that twice. And by the way, do you believe in modern science? So like what? For example, like modern medicines? Like, what is it exactly that you think that Andrew Wilson doesn't believe in? Well, I mean, he doesn't know or doesn't care. The whole point is to discredit Andrew Wilson, because that is ultimately the only thing that Tim Pool has left. Because Tim Pool has been so thoroughly humiliated and decimated and just drugged. He's been smited. The smiting has been thick and palpable. And so Tim is trying to claw any semblance, any inkling, any iota of credibility back. And to do that, he's trying to undermine and insult Andrew Wilson. And it's just embarrassing. It's a fool's errand. Tim, you would be more respected if you just took the L. You're like, yeah, you know what? I did my best. I'm obviously out of my depth. But no, you gotta try to maintain his ego. And wouldn't it be interesting if in a couple years Tim Pool ended up in the iDub situation where he's like a furry VTuber doing whatever he can for content?
Complex systems, so long as they create more disorder in the creation of complex systems. What that ultimately leads to is, simply put, atoms become elements, become compounds, become molecules, all finding other ways to interact to become increasingly more complicated and organizing free energy in the universe into a complex system. This is a fact.
I'm not sure how this isn't like an explanation or descriptor of the observation of revelation of God for you.
So what we see is that once you get to the point of self-replicating proteins, molecules come to a point where, and this is a gap for human knowledge, we don't know why at some point molecules will become self-replicating proteins. I don't think it's all that complicated, because the question of why elements become compounds is the same thing. We don't care. Oxygen bonds with carbon, two oxygen carbon dioxide. These things occur, and we can track the science of them. At a certain point, self-replicating proteins emerge if the chemical conditions are correct. Self-replicating proteins eventually become single-cell life. Single-cell life eventually becomes multicellular life. Within those complex systems, multicellular life eventually creates ecosystems. Now they're creating complex systems outside of physical energy and into abstract concepts, which only exist in our thoughts. Eventually, you'll end up with multicellular organisms.
But your thoughts do exist, you think?
To some degree, they do, because I think, therefore, I am.
Yeah, where do they exist, though?
That's the interesting question that humans don't really know, because this is the abstract, complex dynamic system created by the highest iteration of life as we know, which is ourselves, unless there is an imperceivable higher form of life, which all mathematics predicts does exist. And so what we end up seeing with the universe is first you get chemicals that coalesce, you get organisms that reproduce, all of it collecting free energy and organizing into more complicated systems. Eventually you get a squirrel. Squirrel's a random example. But squirrels create more than just themselves by collecting free energy. They eat food, they make babies, that's replication.
What I don't
Squirrels
understand,
create ecosystems.
I actually don't understand right now, though.
Squirrels
I understand what
are planting nuts, which create trees.
Yeah.
A new abstract system emerges, a complex system between life that is beyond just a physical component. It is now including a physical component, but it has an abstract element to it, interactions between two objects. That accentuates further into the manipulation of an environment, which a lower life form would probably be a beaver.
Yeah, but how is any of this? What I don't understand, right, is those systems you just described,
finished.
you've observed.
So beavers
Those you've observed.
start manipulating their environments and creating complex systems outside of life itself, where they're actually building dams. Dams interact with the environment in a way that's not necessarily life, but it collects free energy. Ultimately, we arrive to humans, where humans do something interesting in the creation of complex systems. They not only self-replicate, they not only create ecosystems, but they create abstract concepts to an extreme degree of complexity. And they not only do that, but they create internal micro simulations, which is...
So now we have the filibuster. So Tim has been humiliated. Tim has been absolutely smited. He's been just dragged. So now it's the filibuster. Now it's if I talk like this, if I talk at a really fast speed, and I use scientific words, and I try to sound smarter than I am, and I say that H2O is 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. If I say that, and then in combination of that makes water. Like if he speaks quickly and he uses scientific terms, well, then it makes him sound smarter than he is. It doesn't, by the way, Tim. This just is embarrassing. You're not engaging with the actual argument. You're not engaging with what you actually believe God to be. You're talking about nebulous things that are completely and totally unrelated. So if that's true, that we don't really understand this, and this, then you're not a Christian, but you don't believe anything of the Bible. You don't believe anything of God's nature that He revealed to us. You don't believe in Jesus Christ. You don't believe in any of this stuff, which, Tim, you're an atheist. You are an atheist. The irony is that you called Andrew Wilson that, but that's what you are. You don't believe in God. I believe in God, but God is a series of systems that are systemic, and they systematically system the systems of the entire system. Like, shut the fuck up, Tim. You don't know what you're talking about. You're out of your depth. You think that if you talk like Ben Shapiro, and you go, oh God, well, let me tell you something. Well, this is the nature of the universe. No, you sound pathetic. You sound embarrassing. You're out of your depth. And I don't know, maybe this is a moment where you should reflect. You've been humiliated twice by two Orthodox Christians that have absolutely vivisected you on this topic. So maybe take off your beanie and learn something. You've been outplayed twice. So, once you could say, okay, maybe it's a mistake. Twice, okay, you've been defeated. Now, you could take it one of two ways. You could double and triple down, or you could go and actually try to learn something to improve yourself.
Is computers and technology. All of this mathematical trend predicts higher forms of life beyond the capability to create abstract concepts, complex systems. Mathematically and probabilistically through observation, we could conclude the likelihood that life that exists beyond us, that has the capability to create systems of the universe itself, is more likely than not. So that in and of itself is a simple view of modern scientific observation into there is, in most likelihood, a life form of some sort or something beyond life that is a complex system that exists beyond us, that has the capability of not just creating abstract complex systems, but of creating complex systems itself. The singularity. The math points to a singularity of one ultimate power that has the capability to...
And that's what you believe is God.
I believe that it is suggestive of a God. My view of God is probably slightly beyond that. When I think of God, I bump into the limits of our ability to comprehend higher dimensions in visualizing higher dimensions in two-dimensional planes, because we can't even do it in three-dimensional planes. And then you come to the ultimate point where we would conclude there is a higher power than us that likely created us, created everything we experience, has the ability to create, destroy, and do whatever it wants, even though in our reality we cannot create or destroy, and we cannot comprehend the true power and true nature of what that is.
Okay. Could you induct then that thing had to be created?
Nope.
Why not?
What do you mean?
Why wouldn't you induct that thing had to be, like, using inductive reasoning? What would you have to base on from actual observation that anything which created anything else was not itself created?
If we go by the standard laws of thermodynamics, that nothing is created or destroyed, only changed.
Yeah, but
so
even if that's the case, the energy which you're destroying or creating, right? God doesn't need to be created. No. He always existed, right?
And we were not created in the sense of we manifested. We were created in the sense that the universe was created by God. The structure, the energy, all of it was created, whether it's finite or not, is a determination of God that we don't know.
Well, do you think this thing has consciousness?
And then we organized. Absolutely.
Okay, so it's doing it on purpose?
Absolutely. So
with a purpose?
Presumably. So consciousness, we are in the universe, and we are components of the universe, and what we experience as conscious entities is a component of the universe, which also implies the universe itself, with us within it and within its confines and laws, experiences consciousness either through us, or there is a very, I believe, obvious observation that if simple consciousness, the neurons firing in our brains, which we think is what's generating consciousness, exists, then obviously there is a calculation of a higher power consciousness beyond ours.
Well, what does it want?
I don't know.
Why did it put you here?
There's a couple ideas that I have on that. One is you can describe it as a sorting algorithm, I suppose. Why do heaven and hell exist? Well, the
You
Christian...
think hell exists too?
Absolutely. But I wouldn't describe it as fire and pits of inferno. I would describe it as, if we look at the universe and we look at the choices we are given, free will, and we take a look at, I would say, trying to learn off Christian or just general religious dogmas, because I do believe that humans and life has a general understanding until it's socialized out of them or they're broken from it. I do believe people can know God exists, but society today tries to make you erase that from your mind.
Well, this is really strange, though. You think we have free will too?
Yes, absolutely.
You don't think it's predetermined?
There's gradients. Yeah, no, it's not predetermined. There's an element of predetermination in that some things will happen, and then how we function within them is ultimately the function of reality. Now, I don't know that, obviously, but I would say based on what I've read, what I've seen, what I've experienced, a simple way to describe it is we are here as sort of a test. We are given choices. We are given free will. We're given opportunity. We are given struggles, and we make choices on how we exist within these things. Do you choose to be evil for self-gain, to burn things down and destroy? If all life, is functioning towards the creation of complex systems, that it would seem to defy God's will to be a force of entropy. So when you look at Antifa burning things down, destroying that, I describe that as evil. When you look at Democrats exploiting to steal and make gains for themselves, they are empowering a small system at the destruction of a larger system. I would call that evil. If the purpose of a person or if the function of a person is to create more complicated systems, i.e. create life, protect life, and expand upon life, that seems to be God's will, as that is what life does. So there's a sort of yin-yang of the universe. I don't believe it's balanced like yin-yang. I believe it's more like the golden ratio spiraling towards negative, towards entropy, with life functioning as negative entropy. And thus, simply put, there is a God. We are here for a reason. We are here to protect, to organize, to create, and develop and expand.
So what if you end up in a situation where you have Aztecs who are cutting the...
You stop them.
Oh, hang on. Cutting the... sacrificing it to their god. Okay? But when they do, they are way more likely to breed. You have now expanded life.
Nope.
Yes.
Oh, man. All right, guys. Well, that is the end of that video. And I think that's where we're going to end this this video. Guys, let me just say, I want to thank those of you in chat who stuck around for this video. This was a difficult one, especially for my fellow Christians in chat. It was difficult. You had a pretentious know-nothing who is trying to pick and choose elements of God and Christianity to believe in, like he's going to a Chinese buffet. Oh, I want the prawns. I don't really want the mushu pork. Like, this is not a pick and choose adventure. God has told us his nature. God has given us commandments, and these are duties that we have. There are certain things that God has explained to us through text, through divine revelation. There are things that God has explained to us. And Tim, he has basically just said, you know what? To hell with all of that. I'm just going to make up my own thing. I'm going to make up Timism. Yeah, guys, I believe in Poolshianity. Yeah. Guys, I believe in Pooldeism. Poolslam. Timslam. God has established the church and revealed himself through Scripture. True. Yeah, absolutely true. And so, I'm really glad that you guys stuck around. I'm really glad that you guys helped me to get through this. But, yeah, Tim, you got a lot of work to do. That was an embarrassing showing, and shout out to Andrew Wilson. Shout out to Andrew Wilson. He did a phenomenal job. Anyway, that'll do it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching. See you next time.